it's only you that can sort that out. I won this competition, Mixmag resident in Ibiza, and went out there. 2 months later, he sends me a picture of a double-page spread in Mixmag, and it was like, said like DOD in the place to be, and I could not fucking believe it. I was just like, wow. It was an awesome experience. My wife Lauren came. We were partying loads. It was just great. It was like, I'll never forget it. I think ultimately I was just quite unhappy in my career, and I think I was kind of like putting a bit of a plaster over it, really. And it's not the right thing to do for me. I just started saying no. Was closing out my set, Warehouse Project main room, and 10,000 people in front of me, playing So Much in Love, and literally pulled down the fader, and the whole place sang my song back. I could not believe what I was witnessing. I was like, that was a moment where I really thought like you've cracked it. You've finally cracked it. Like, after all of these years of hard graft, it kind of all came to that one moment right there, and I was just like, I just could not believe it.
We understand that as a DJ, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. It can be extremely difficult, and everybody has a different story to tell. So we want to open up this platform to help facilitate a safe space for DJs like yourself to come on board and just tell your story, so we can help build a deeper connection with you, rather than just a 30, 60-second clip on Instagram or TikTok or anything like that. So thank you very much for taking the time. But in order to do so, let's rewind it back to the very beginning and hear a little bit about why or how you got into DJing / producing.
So I actually got into it for all the wrong reasons, if I'm completely honest. So my mate, one of my best mates at high school, so he just started high school. He got a pair of turntables, and he was just into hip hop at the time. But I just thought it was so cool that somebody had actually got some decks, and I used to go around to his house, and obviously he was just like playing hip hop at the time, and I was very fortunate that at the time my parents they actually got me some decks for I think it was for Christmas, because I was just like begging them to get me some. So it started for all the wrong reasons. Started because I thought it was a cool thing to do, but that quickly turned into the hobby kind of turned into a bit of an obsession, really. Because I was already quite heavily into dance music. My brother Chris, he's like 8 years older than me. He was really into dance music, and obviously he was going out and actually clubbing and stuff. And I always remember he used to have these. It was like the Ibiza annual CDs, the Ministry of Sound Ibiza annual CDs, the ones like mixed by like Judge Jules, Pete Tong, and like. Back in the day, these things were like fucking gospel, like everybody used to have these, and I used to take these CDs and listen to them, and that was really my kind of like introduction into dance music was kind of through my brother, really, and just hearing the music that my brother was playing. So when I had actually got the decks, there were these like Belt Drive, I think they were called like Electrovision or something. Like, they were pretty shit, to be honest, but like they were decks, and I was just buzzing. I was really, really buzzing to even I've got the opportunity to have some decks at my house. And obviously vinyl was like really expensive back then. Like really expensive, and I was only a kid, and I couldn't afford to go out and buy vinyl. It's not like now where you can like download a track and then just put it on a USB and play it. Like, I had to get the bus into town. Like, I'm originally from Bury in Manchester. I get the bus into town, and then these vinyls, even back then, we're talking like I can't even remember. That was like early 2000s, and the vinyl then was like still 13 quid a pop. So like buy like one record a month, if that. Um, so like I was just like experimenting with the very few records that I actually had, and I had my dad's old vinyl records, and that's when I started kind of like mashing songs up. So it'd be like the old Madonna album, like a Prayer, and then I'd put it over some like fat house beat. But that was literally just me, just kind of just messing about and like experimenting. So that's really kind of how things started for me. In terms of getting into DJing.
We'll get back to the pod in just a second, guys. Thank you, Eden, for sponsoring this podcast and making it a reality. Make sure you all hang around to the end because we've got some huge giveaways that you cannot miss. Let's go. So what age were you at this time?
I was 12.
12.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, obviously you've had a very early start into it. Thankfully for your brother being a proper session, being into it. And your parents, that musical family then, is it?
I wouldn't say so, no. Like my dad's always been into his like his soul and Motown and stuff like that. But I would, it's not like anybody in the family played an instrument. It wasn't musical in that sense, but I guess everybody enjoyed music. My sisters loved pop music very much. Like at the time was when like Destiny's Child and like other pop artists like NSYNC and stuff like that. So they were very much into the more commercial side of stuff, and yeah, me and my brother were into dance music, but like a real range of dance music as well, like Scout House. Like there was some happy hardcore in there as well. Like I loved all that kind of stuff, and actually when I first started going to these like underage events, like the under 14s nights. Everybody absolutely off the chops when they definitely shouldn't have been. And they were just playing like, it's quite almost like clubland style music. That's the only way I can really explain it now. So in a term that people will kind of understand. But yeah, I was kind of into that as well because all my mates were into that, and but I was into a lot of different stuff. I've never been one to kind of just pigeonhole myself into kind of one genre of music.
Yeah, awesome. Now this is something that I see so much, like with in terms of like genre specificity, where everybody just sort of latches onto one genre and then all the other ones are just dog shit. And no, you can't listen to that. That's not cool. And it's one thing that I absolutely cannot stand about the industry because there's so much good music out there. It all stems from like the same thing when you like strip it back, and what you're dealing with as a producer, obviously you'll see it. But from an early age, was there a certain point where you, like when you were starting to collect these tracks, was there a certain point where it did start going down one route, or have you always just been just mass collecting?
I guess it was actually one of my first trips to Ibiza, and it was early 2000s, and I was with my family, and we got a place up in the mountains of San Jose, and I was like, my biggest thing that I wanted to do was go to a record shop in Ibiza and get a record. And I always remember we were in in the Old Town bit, and we went to this record shop, and like I was looking through, and like at the time that's when like most DJs still just played on vinyl. So like I almost felt like it's a bit of like an imposter kind of syndrome. Like I didn't want to like be in there because back in the day, if you were choosing records, you have to go through, you have to sift through the records that you want. You chose your record, you get a stack of records, then you go and take them over to one of the decks, put your headphones on, and then like you move the needle, kind of just like when you download a tune and like you'd skip through it. And like I was like, I just didn't want to be there. So like I was kind of really put off by that experience that I was in Ibiza, and and I was kind of like surrounded by these DJs. Like I didn't know who the fuck these DJs were around me, if they were anybody or they were just like into dance music. And it kind of almost like scared me a little bit because I was only a little kid as well. But I always remember I went and I ended up buying a CD, and it was a mixed CD from Amnesia, and I'm pretty sure it was a Paco Osuna one. Like I remember the artwork, I remember the intro of the album as well, and that for me was kind of the first thing that steered me more into just liking house music. Like obviously I liked all different genres of music, but yeah, pushed me more into that kind of housey direction, and it was actually from that first trip to Ibiza, really.
Awesome. So that's your first taste of what Ibiza has to offer, then.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I wasn't old enough to be going clubbing, um, but yeah, that was my first taste of Ibiza. Yeah.
Awesome. So then we speed forward a little bit of time. What come first for you then? Was it DJing or producing? What was
Um,
your
it was most definitely DJing. So I had these decks, and I had a small selection of vinyl, and I was working with my brother, who was an electrician, and I used to help him out over the summer. And we were working in this bar in Bury, and I was like trying to weasel my way in there with the guy who owned the bar. And I said to him, I was like, "Yeah, I'm a DJ." Like I was literally just about to turn 50. I was young. Like, "Yeah, I'm a DJ." Like confident as anything. And then he was like, "Oh, you can come play here." Like, no, I didn't get paid for it. It was just the opportunity to be able to play music in front of people. But I did it. I went and did it. Obviously, like I said, didn't get paid for it. But it was that like um, that was my first experience of like playing out live, and I'm pretty sure I played the same records because I didn't have enough records as well. Um, yeah, and quickly after that, I realized that it's really, really, really what I wanted to do was like be a DJ and like be in front of a crowd and basically just play house music. But then um, in order to do that, you have to kind of climb up the ladder a little bit, and there weren't just these like there wasn't an abundance of house music gigs for a 14, 15 year old to have. You know, nobody didn't even hardly anybody wanted you in the bar. You know, so they were certainly weren't going to give you opportunities as a DJ. So I actually started glass collecting in a local bar, and um, I did it so that because I knew they didn't have a DJ as well. So it was glass collecting. This is when I was 15. Definitely shouldn't have even been working there. Um, I was glass collecting, and then I finally got the opportunity when the place was really busy. I was like, look, like because they had the equipment there. The guy was like, I just don't think he liked to pay people to play music basically. So I was like, look, I'll jump on in between kind of glass collecting, and that's how my first residency happened. And I was just playing R&B, commercial music, but it made me realize then, like, okay, I can maybe if I get good enough at being able to read the crowd and play to this kind of group of people that come out into Bury on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, then maybe I could start making a bit of money from it. And that's what ended up happening. And I was quickly just like a kind of local DJ then, just playing, your average kind of pop music and R&B, and that's really where the DJing, not in a professional sense, but like in a kind of semi-professional, because you're playing out, I guess it is a profession. But the worst of it was at the time was that when the bar got really, really busy, then I'd have to go back to glass collecting. So I'd be like DJ, and then he'd be like, "Come on," like still treating me like I'm a little dickhead. He was like, "Come on, you need to go and collect all these glasses." And that's what I have to do. I just have to kind of be like, "Okay, I've gone from being a DJ to glass collecting," but it's just a part of the story, isn't it? Part of the story.
Yeah, that's So you're 15 years old and you're in a bar DJing and glass collecting at once, which I mean is going to probably sharpen your skills even better if you're trying to mix songs and having to run and grab some glasses.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. He would actually say to me, he'd be like, just put a mix CD, because that's all he used to do. He'd be like, put the CD on, like you need to go, there's some glasses that need collecting. I thought, fucking hell, come on, I'm supposed to be the DJ, man.
That's
But yeah,
that's super. It's super interesting though that you've had that. Like, obviously, 15 is like ridiculously young, especially
yeah,
to have the awareness of this is something that I love doing. This is something that I could possibly be making money from as well. So like to have the opportunity to just even just or be in the space to have that thought is quite impressive at that age. You
Yeah,
know,
having that
yeah,
confidence to actually do that.
yeah.
Yeah, fair
And
play.
yeah, yeah.
also seeking out the position because they didn't have a DJ, so you're going to go in there as a glass collector just in case you can get a job.
Yeah.
I love
Well,
that.
that's it,
That's
and
hustle.
yeah, well, that's literally what I was doing. I was just, and that's been relevant throughout the whole of my career. It's a big hustle, and it is, because it's not easy. It's not easy. Right from the word go. I know that, like, that's what I wanted to do, but like, I didn't have any leg ups in the industry. Like, I was just just trying to get opportunities by grafting and trying different avenues, really.
Well, this is it. Like a lot of people just look at people, like look at people that have made it, or just anyone successful, and they say, "Oh, well, they just got lucky. Like they spoke to this person." But
Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent of like you create your own luck.
Yeah,
By being young and making sure that you go into that bar when it's busy and like, trying to be a DJ and glass collecting, you're then creating a lot more opportunities where you can get seen. You're creating the opportunity to like sort of learn how to manage the crowd, how to like
yeah,
sort of play the music, how to play them. So yeah, so from the off, you're already grafting, as I said, hustling to like sort of pick up these key skills that
yeah,
clearly
absolutely.
have served you wonderfully. So from there, what's the next step? You're in a bar in Bury.
Yeah.
Where's the next sort of jump for you here?
So the next jump, I went to Lancaster University in 2000. So I was still DJing locally, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. By this point, I wasn't doing the glass collecting. I was just DJing. Started to play a few different venues. Still wasn't at like the biggest club in Bury, which was at the time was a place called Sol Viva. And like for me, that was like that was always a place where I would have like loved to have played, but it was always such a closed door, because like you had the resident DJ, and the resident DJ would just like would just kind of control everything. But I started going clubbing, like proper clubbing at the time, and I started going to Sankey's, and Sankey's in Manchester, and also the first ever warehouse projects as well, which was at Boddington's Brewery. So this was in 2006 now, and this was at a time where I just enrolled into Lancaster University as well. So I'd finished college. I studied music technology at college. Didn't really learn anything. Like, met a lot of nice people, met a lot of good friends, but I didn't really learn anything. If I actually think about it, I didn't learn anything, which is interesting, really, because you think music technology, surely you're going to come out with a load of knowledge. No, I didn't. That's just the reality of it. So I thought I definitely wanted to go to university, partly because like I love to party. So I didn't really want to kind of just settle into a job. I don't think I've ever been that person that's wanted to like, oh well, I must get this kind of job, because I need to make a living, and I've very much kind of just always tried to do stuff that makes me happy, and gives me the kind of best life balance, really. And like at the time, going to uni was just something that I really wanted to do. So I got into university. Lancaster University is a great uni as well, studying music technology. So at that time, I was kind of meeting different people in the industry as well. Not associated with the university, but just from like just being out and about and like going clubbing and stuff. And I started playing in Huddersfield a little bit, and that's when I started on like the Revolution bars circuit a little bit. And that's where I got a bit more of an opportunity to be able to play house music. And I did that for a long time. And that was playing the more kind of like the funky house kind of style, because that was still massive back then. That was in this transition where like commercial kind of funky house was big in the UK, and then electro kind of started to come through. Which was a great time in music. I love that time in music. So that was my next step up, really, of doing Revolution bars. And while that was happening, I also was getting a couple of opportunities to play at Sankey's. But in order to play there, I was having to hustle away, and I had to sell tickets to play in the top room just to even get the opportunity to play there. I had to sell 30 tickets to play there. I won't mention which night it is, but like it still happens to this day. You know, it's a marketing tool. You know, like DJs want the opportunity to play in a venue. Like, you want to play for my night, you sell tickets for me. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're seeing the evolution of that now, isn't it? It's just it's moving on from physical tickets being sold to how many followers you have on Instagram with the potential reach to sell more tickets that way. I think it's always the same gameplay. It's just the sort of the way it's gone about is just changing, is evolving with technology. I think that's
Yeah.
what's happening. But something really interesting you just said there, which I would like to touch on a little bit, because I think others would be super interested, especially if they're looking to become producers or DJs themselves, is you said that you learned nothing from your course in college.
And
Now,
uni.
obviously,
Uni. Nothing from
and
uni either.
And uni.
Honestly,
so,
I shit you not, I did not learn anything. I didn't learn anything.
hey, listen, like I'm completely aware of what's going on. It's not just this industry; it seems to be most industries. Unless
Yeah.
you're becoming a doctor, I don't think there's any point in going to
No,
any of
it's
these
it's
establishments, to
experience.
be honest.
It's
Yeah,
experience
so
is
that's
what you
it.
need.
Yeah, so talk to me then. Like, obviously, you might not have learned anything there, but you've clearly earned a fucking lot. So
Yeah.
tell us where you're getting your experience from and how you're learning, and how like you would sort of recommend to others out there that might be interested, or yeah, just take us through that.
Yeah. So me getting into it, like, really focusing on music production came as a necessity, really, to take my career to the next step. Because shortly after shortly after finishing university, I was actually putting on a lot of events with my wife. I met my wife at university, and we used to put on these events just so that I had the opportunity to be able to play with these big DJs, because I thought that was like an avenue in for me to make it big, and I was just trying to do whatever I could to further myself as a DJ, really, because back then you could still kind of break through just by being a DJ. It wasn't it wasn't all just about music. So I had entered a DJ competition. This was just when I had left university, and like I said, I was promoting events, risking thousands of pounds just for the opportunity to be meeting these other DJs. That's literally why I was doing it, because like it certainly was. Like, sometimes you'd have great events where it would be quite profitable, and then other ones you'd lose a load of money, and it would always kind of even itself out, but it was a lot of stress. Just in order just to get the opportunity to play with other DJs, but I was doing it because that's what I thought was the right thing for me at the time for my career. So at the same time, I also entered a DJ competition with Mixmag, and it was an online competition, and it was on a website called don'tstayin.com. And don'tstayin.com used to be, it's kind of like the equivalent of Facebook, but without actually having like a profile. It's just like you go on a night out, and then somebody would then go and upload all those photos for that specific venue where you were at, and then you could go through and you could download the photos, and then like you just had the photos then. So it was in conjunction with that, and I entered the competition, and the prize was to be the Mixmag Ibiza holiday resident. I ended up winning it, and I thought, like, fuck me, like I've cracked it, like I've absolutely cracked it, because don't forget Mixmag. I mean, obviously, it's still huge now, but back then, like the physical Mixmag was like, certainly for me, it was like the Bible. Do you know what I mean? Like you used to. That's how you found out all of your information about what was going on in the land of dance music. Really, you get the mix CDs. So I won this competition, Mixmag resident in Ibiza, and went out there, met this guy called Nick Stevenson, who is actually now the managing director of the group that owns Mixmag. He's a great guy, and they gave me, after the week holiday, it was an awesome experience. My wife Lauren came. We were partying loads. It was just great. It was like, I'll never forget. It was really, really good. And then I did a little interview with Nick, and then about 2 months later, he sends me a picture of a double page spread in Mixmag, and it was like, it said like DOD in the place to be, and like I could not fucking believe it. I was just like, wow. Like I honestly thought I had made it. I mean, it's naive now looking back, but like it was such a big thing for me, and I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, like, well, fuck me, like gigs are going to be rolling in now, and like, how are the gigs going to roll in? I had no social media profile, like I had no booking agency, I had no management, like I had none of that. And I felt like when the magazine had come out, like I can't explain how happy I was about it. It was like it really felt like I had the first big breakthrough for me, because it was such a big opportunity for me, like to get a double page spread in Mixmag for an unknown local DJ, and then I kind of expected all this stuff to happen, and it just didn't. And that's when I thought, like, probably about a month in, I was like, right, okay, I need to start the hustle, because nothing's going to happen. So what I did, I started picking up the phone to these promoters that I was booking their artists for the club nights. I was like, look, I've just got a double page spread in Mixmag, and I've got all this exposure and stuff like that, and it was kind of my first real feeling of like rejection in the industry. The first of many, believe me. But it didn't stop me. I just kept ringing around, and then eventually I landed on an agency called Promoter Friendly Agency, and they looked after Eddie Halliwell. They looked after like a lot of like the harder style kind of harder style kind of like techno. Obviously, he was playing Bosch at the time. And they were the first people that were like just really interested straight away, and they kind of saw something, and they're also like local to the area. Simon Halliwell, who's actually Eddie's brother, so it's Simon Halliwell and Barry Almond, who owned who's still it's under a different name now, and they owned Promoter Friendly Agency, and I signed up with them, and they gave me pretty much all my first opportunities of playing in actual proper clubs up and down the UK, because what was happening then, I was Eddie's warm-up DJ. So I was touring all over the UK, all over Ireland with Eddie, and this was off the back of me grinding away, just thinking like, I need to, if I don't do something with what I've got here, it's just gonna come and go. And luckily that worked out, and Simon, Eddie, and Barry, they gave me some great opportunities at the time. But then there came a point where things kind of just leveled out a bit, and I felt like they had leveled out, and it's like, what's the next step here? What is the next step that's going to give me another leg up in the industry? Because I've already got this. I've already felt like I've taken this level up like a year ago or however long it was. So like, what's the next step now? Making music. That is the next step. So making music was more of a necessity for me than it was like, it's not like I wanted to make music, because I just love DJing. All I wanted to do was just DJ, but it wasn't enough. I'd kind of gone past that point of where you could really crack it as just being a technical DJ, because that's what I used to always kind of pride myself on, is that I could do shit on the decks that other people couldn't do. But it just wasn't enough. That was the reality of it, and that's where the music production came in. And I was at uni, I wasn't learning anything because I was just partying loads. But I don't regret any of the partying though, because the partying is really, I was going to, like I said, I was going to Warehouse Projects, I was going to Sankey's, and I was going to Globe Gathering Festival, which was in Stratford upon Avon. That was my first taste of a music festival as well. I fucking loved it. I absolutely loved going to it. So yeah, that was. I don't regret any of that. Like going out and partying and meeting like-minded people and just like immersing yourself in dance music. That is absolutely the right fucking thing to do. Like without a doubt, I have no regrets to that. Obviously you have your daft moments where you hit it really hard, and maybe there's a period in your life where, well, certainly for me, where I was just hitting it a bit too hard. But I feel like for me, I had these pockets of realization. Right, if you don't nip that in the bud, then everything that you kind of built up to this point is just going to go to shit. So you kind of got to make a bit of a decision, really. And that's really when I kind of started to focus on the music production, because you can't be getting on it all weekend and then go and try and make music, because you ain't making anything good, believe me, especially not when you're starting out, you're just learning. Like when you're learning, you need to be actually soaking stuff up, and if you go into clubs, you're not exactly staying sober and remembering everything what's going on and the styles of and exactly what people were playing. You're getting lost in it a little bit, which is great as well. But yeah, it was getting into music production then was really the key for me to take another step up.
Yeah. And what platform did you originally start on when you started producing?
Logic. Do you mean like the music software?
Yeah, what software did you use?
Yeah, so Logic, and I still use Logic to this day. And I will tell you this, right? People always say like, oh, what DAW, like digital audio workstation, do you use? They all fucking do the same thing. They literally all do the same thing. It's what's up here. That's what matters. It's what's up here. Like, you get the end result. You still get the same end result. It's your ideas. It's how creative you are. And for me, I've always found that when I'm really sharp, that's when I'm most creative. And I've noticed this, the older that I've got, the more my head needs, the more my brain needs to be super sharp.
Yeah. So have you found that your creative process, or like how you're producing, has changed from over the years as you learn that, like, obviously you need to be a bit more sharp? Do you putting things in place? Do you have like a protocol, or is it just waiting for an idea to pop and then we're going down? So like, tell us a little bit about your like the ways you're producing.
I've got a few different sorry, one sec, I just need to burp. I've got a few different ways how I kind of get cracking creatively with music. More recently, over the last couple of years, I've been doing a 30 tracks. Like I cannot, if you know me and like you're involved in like my team or whatever, or you want to mention, know quickly, like I make music really, really fast. Like I tend not to tend not to overthink it too much. If it sounds good, just leave it. I'm not one to be like searching through, looking for a kick, looking for the right clap. Like, no, I'm not wasting my time doing that. If the clap sounds all right, just leave it in there, just crack on, move on to the next thing. So I started doing this thing, 30 tracks in 30 days. I'm very, very much kind of treat making music like a normal job, in a sense. Like, I'm up super early. I mean, I've got 2 kids, so like I'm up early anyway. But I'm in the studio for 8, half 8 every single morning, and I work up until 6 p.m. every single day, and I'm still doing that now every single day. So what I'll do in this 30 tracks, I will start a record, and then whatever happens at the end of that day, I have to leave that record, and the next day I will go on to, I'll make another record. And the last time I did that, I made So Much in Love, which has been I shit you not, right? I'll look at the when it was opened, right? The when the file was opened. So the file, so I'm just getting it up now on my computer. The file was opened, so it's 30 tracks, So Much in Love. Okay. The file was first opened in January at 10:22 in the morning. By 16:30, I'd made the track, and the track is pretty much how it sounds.
That's insane.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And that is because I'm not thinking about the music that I'm making too much. I'm kind of just like put it in. If it sounds good, I'm just gonna leave it. I'm just not overthinking it too much, and that is how I can get really, really creative, because I'm just like, I'm not thinking about the tiny little things. Obviously, if I feel like I'm onto something, then at the end of the 30 days, then I'll go back to them and I'll tweak the ones that I feel have a little bit of potential. And out of that whole of the 30 tracks, I think 5 of them got released. Some of them I ended up turning into remixes. One of them was Set Me Free as well, which did really well here in the UK. And these records have changed my life. They've completely changed my life. And if I hadn't had this creative process of just 30 tracks in 30 days, I would have never made those records. And I'm a firm believer that if you're not in the studio, like this is a big thing I want to talk about actually. If you're not in the studio on a certain day, you are never going to make that record. So if I wasn't in the studio on that day when I made So Much in Love or I made Still Sleepless, I would have never made that record, because creatively, it's not what my head was going to make that day. I would have just never made it. So that's why I'm always in the fucking studio.
So then it's a numbers game though, isn't it then? So you're just setting yourself some form of parameters so you can make sure that you're definitely getting those 30 tracks in those 30 days. And then you're not expecting to make 30 like chart toppers.
No.
You're expecting to make 30 tracks that you're going to get a few out of.
Yeah.
So it's just constantly just a numbers game. And I think that's something that's like sort of riddled through your life, whether you thought about it or not. But clearly, like just opening up those opportunities and just making sure that you're turning up every single day. And
yeah, you're right.
Each one of those is just like a tiny little notch that just keeps building and building and building and building, which is like, as we were speaking about, everybody sees the iceberg. They don't see these, like this succession of just little notches that you're putting in your belt every single day.
Yeah. And it is, it's every day. Like, I'm grafting every single day, even with having, I've had 2 really successful records here in the UK that I never even dreamed. I didn't even dream of like things ever getting to this level. And that's me being completely honest. I think after when Still Sleepless was like a hit in the UK, I almost like, again, it goes back to what I was saying about imposter syndrome. I almost felt like I didn't deserve it in a way, which is ridiculous, because like it's everything what I had worked for really. But it's kind of like, I was all of a sudden I was like number 4 most played track on UK radio for the whole of the UK, and and you know the track was a massive success. But deep down, I kind, especially after when it all started to settle a little bit, I kind of thought like shit. It was a bit of this kind of like empty feeling. Not that I was like doubting myself, but it's kind of like how do you top that? How do you kind of, yeah, how do you top it? And that's one thing that it just worried me a little bit. I was like, shit. But one thing that I've always thought throughout my career is that the worry is what's driven me. The worry of things collapsing and failing is the thing that has fucking driven me to make sure that never happens. And you know, just cracking on. And then I always, right, I think last November, it was actually the last time I had a big do with my mates, right? And we'd hired out a cottage in the Lake District, not too far away from here, like 40 minutes. And do you know how you get the Spotify Wrapped things at the end of the year? So this was after a 3-day like heavy session, and I looked on my phone and it was like, your Spotify Wrapped is ready, your artist Wrapped thing. So I looked on it and it was like 75 million plays in that year. So that was from last November to the November before. And I thought like, wow, like that is incredible. But again, it was this feeling of like, shit, you know, like what am I going to do now? Like, how am I ever going to be able to top that? And then this year, I've just like, I thought about that. I thought about what had happened, because it was like, oh, it wasn't like, maybe it was just because it was coming back off the back of a heavy one, but it was like, it was a bit of like a sinking feeling. I was just like, you know, like you obviously, all I've ever wanted to do is just kind of just better myself and, you know, just push myself and take things to another level. But that was a real moment for me where I was just like, well, I've had a hit record that like I never expected to ever have it. I feel like it almost happened by accident. That track, that it all just happened by accident.
I think it's easy to like sort of go down that route because it's sort of just protecting yourself. I think it's human nature for you to worry about what that next step is. Like we work with clients in like the social media space, so like especially like let's say you're uploading to YouTube, then you'll get rating like out of 1 to 10 of how that video is performing. So then you're trying to go for ones and ones and ones and ones, and then you'll have one that'll pop off, it'll go viral, exactly the same as what you're saying, and then you're just shitting yourself then because you're like, how am I gonna keep that? Because the next one needs to be a 1 out of 10 as well.
You set the bar higher,
and then the bars go. So what would you say, or how would you say that you cope with that? Because that is human nature. I think everybody's going to feel it in whatever they're doing. So like, do you have any like? Obviously, you're experiencing it more than most people. So how do you handle that like pressure? How do you sort of take it forward?
By working harder. That's honestly how I deal with it. I work even harder because that is the only way. Because like it's going back to what we were saying about the 30 tracks. Like I have to go through a process of like making loads to find the little gems. But recently, the little gems have been really fruitful gems. You know, like the records that have just changed my life. So that and that's really how I did, because you know, after going back to what we're saying about the Spotify Wrapped thing, I was like, shit, you know, like what am I going to do? And then it was 2 days after that was when I started the 30 tracks in 30 days, because I thought, right, get my shit together, just going to make as much music as possible. Let's end the year on like on a high. And it was basically off the back of having a bender. That was what put me in this position of like of making all those records, because like I was basically feeling sorry for myself, and I was like, right, you need to sort your shit out, and you need to make some good music. But like with the Spotify Wrapped thing, just to kind of put things into context for you, I was like, how am I ever gonna better that? I checked. a few days ago, and we're on over 250 million streams from this November to last November. And now I'm like, well, shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, now what do I do? But like the great thing now is that like I feel that I've got so much more confidence in my music, and confidence is the key for me. And I was getting these straight away, right from the word go in 2023. I had to Set Me Free. And this was just meant to be a club record. Set Me Free was just a club record. And I remember after when I'd finished it, part of this 30 tracks in 30 days, I always take my music and I take it up to my wife and I'm like, what do you think of this? You know, she's like my A&R. So if people don't know what an A&R is, they're the people who kind of basically just choose your music, try and give you an advice on music, and then they're the ones that will eventually release music, like an A&R for a label. So I take the music up to Lauren. I remember I played the Set Me Free, and it was just like the kick and the held string. I was like, check this out, what do you think of this? And she was like, we were just buzzing about the record. And then that track ended up making it to Radio 1 playlist. So that what that means is then that's on rotation on radio, and that's a big deal, right? In the UK, it's a big deal. And that alone, and big up Radio 1 for this, because that gave me so much confidence in my music, because I thought, well, fuck me, if this track, if a track that I was just making just for the club is one of the most played tracks on UK radio, then sky's the limit. You know, like where I can now make anything, and it has a chance of being a big success. And it's that kind of like, I stopped caring so much. I was just like, I made that track because like I was buzzing about it. And I was really, really just happy with the track, and I put it out because I was happy, and I played it out, and it was working great. And I stopped being so precious about what I was putting out, and I was just putting out stuff that I was just happy with.
So do you feel that was kind of a renewed confidence in your processes, like the 30 tracks in 30 days sort of process that you go through? You realize that you're onto something then, that it just works?
Absolutely, yeah. Because I was quickly making this music, and then the music was becoming successful, and I just thought, well, this system that I've got going on here seems to work. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not doing this 30 tracks all the time. I've just started one this last week. I've started doing it again. Maybe November is like a good month to do it. I don't know. But like throughout the year, I'm always working on music. Like I say, I'm in the studio, treat it like a proper job. You know, I mean, I say a proper job. I just love making music. Like if I could just make music and not have to do anything else, like that would be like the ultimate thing. But obviously, like now we've got other shit to do. But yeah. It definitely the 30 tracks in 30 days has been a big it's changed my life. Not gonna lie, changed my life.
Awesome. It's awesome to hear. So obviously you seem to have got like your sort of production down to the T. You know what you're doing, and you've got your confidence in it. How does that play then in line with obviously having to tour? Like you've just come off your tour, which we'll dig into a little bit, but obviously you're getting booked left, right, and center. So like, tell us, how does that sort of like fit for you? Is it difficult trying to juggle the both? Do you still enjoy going out and getting stuck into like the culture, the scene? Just walk us through that a little bit, I think.
Yeah. So now I don't go clubbing anymore. I'm a bit older now. Got 2 kids, so if I do have a bit of time, I'm not going to be in a club. That's just the reality of it. I'm gonna be with my family. But pretty much every Friday and Saturday now I'm DJing, and it's at a point that I always dreamed of. Like that. This is what I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be a touring DJ. That is what I always wanted to do. I wanted to go and play the music that I wanted to play. And it's even sweeter that it's in the UK as well, because I used to play a lot internationally. Like it was great, but it was so much like traveling. and not really necessarily playing the music that I wanted to play. Like I was playing a lot in Asia and stuff. And although it was great, it wasn't the music that I wanted to play. And it's kind of like at a certain point you have to start saying no to these things, because if you're in a position to be able to say no, like that's you've got to be in a position to be able to say no. And for me, it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I've got a family. I didn't want to be spending half my life just sat on an aeroplane. And it becomes a point where you got to say, what for me, I just started saying no. And luckily my plan worked out. Luckily. And I started touring a lot in the UK, but I find for me, touring in the UK is great. I love it. Like my music, in terms of like radio and streams, my music performs the best in the UK. So my fan base is biggest in the UK. And yeah, one thing that I quickly realized, and I realized this, so when things really started to pick up, because like, yeah, it's been a very long process to kind of get to this point, but the extensive touring has only really kind of kicked off from After So Much in Love, because I had Still Sleepless, right, and big record in the UK. But the interesting thing was that it wasn't necessarily translating to loads of shows. And you would have thought having a hit in the UK would, everybody would want to book you. And it just didn't happen like that. And now what I've realized is that you need multiple hits. In my experience, you need multiple hits and you need consistency for the people to really, really notice. And it went from, in the last 6 months, like playing some decent shows to now fully selling out my UK tour, in such a short amount of time. The profile's kind of gone up like that much, and that's off the back of having consistent records that perform really well here in the UK, which I'm very, very, very thankful for.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable to watch as well. But what would you say is the reason behind like having to be like consistent or have multiple like sort of breakthrough tracks out there, like just for the people that are watching that are like sort of just trying to create that one to spark off? What's the underlying thing there? Is it the promoters are looking for obviously a bit more confidence in you, or what's
you
that
mean
look
you
like
mean
for you?
with in terms of like getting gig bookings?
Yeah.
It's I think it's the stats really, because we're living in a world where stats are kind of everything, and if you're having multiple hit records and you're always on rotation on playlist on radio, a lot of the time that is then enough for. Because promoters are taking a risk. That's what promoters are doing. When they're booking you, they're taking a risk. I know this because I used to be a promoter. You're paying money for people, and you're hoping that you're going to pack your club out. You're taking a risk on the artist. So, like, I think if I look back, and I was kind of maybe a bit too expectant before I had successful records. I kind of just was. It's almost like a feeling of frustration a little bit. I think kind of thinking, well, like what more can I actually be doing? I'm releasing these records and I'm not necessarily like getting the caliber of bookings that I wanted to get. But now I know from getting to this point that it really is about just having big records to then be a no-brainer for a promoter to be like, yeah, like we want to take DOD for a booking.
Just about sort of mitigating as much risk as possible. So try and be as risk off as possible. So it's
yeah, that's it. and certainly like as a DJ who's kind of just starting off, you do whatever you can possibly do to get these opportunities. And you know, if you have to go and play somewhere for free, go and play somewhere for free. You know, I did it. You know, I used to have to go and sell, like I said, go and sell tickets to go and play somewhere. But you've got to grind it away. I understand, like, you know, I come from a time where like social media wasn't really a thing. When I was first kind of starting out, where I think a lot of people now can be successful online, and have some records that kind of perform well, you know. So it's not for me, the avenue of just having successful records was really the catalyst to selling out shows like worldwide. Whereas like now, a young kid might come through and be really popular on social media, on TikTok or whatever, and have a record that does all right, and then like that might be enough for them. But certainly, for my experience, it's always been about the graft.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, talk to me about your like perspective on social media, because obviously it's rapidly changing the entire industry from all different angles. Whether you're looking at like the promoter side, whether you're looking at the club side, or whether you're looking at the artist side. And I've noticed that you are quite active on your Instagram as well now with like your producer tips and whatnot. Is that all part of like a master game plan that you're putting together on your social media? Is it you just giving like a little bit of something back to the industry or to your followers? Talk me through like what that process looks like for you.
Yeah, so this was actually an idea from my team, my management team, and they kind of they know how hard I work in the studio, and they know like the output every day that I'm giving, and they kind of thought we should capitalize on that a little bit, and we should kind of show the world that bit more in depth about what I can do really. And that's when I do like these. If people like have a look on the social on my social media, they see like I do like a track in 15 minutes, and it's just kind of showcasing skills in a way. Because I've had a couple of my mates like, oh, why are you giving away your secrets and stuff like that? Like, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm the one that's telling people about it. So like, you know, like just it's just a bit of content, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, and you're setting yourself as like an authority figure then.
That's it.
People know,
yeah, exactly.
People know what you're talking about. They know your skills. They know what you can do. And like, so what if you're giving your secrets? Like, great. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're helping millions of other, well, potentially millions of other people out there, like sort of help take on a step. Because realistically, the entire industry, there's plenty enough space for everyone, you know? You're creating songs that are like 3-5 minutes long. Like, people can consume hundreds of thousands of songs a day if they wish to, you know. There's plenty of space for everyone. But no, I think that's awesome, and it's clearly working. Like, I've identified what you're doing on your socials, and it's good. And another thing as well is with you giving so much value, then everybody else. Oh, give us 1 second. There's a fire alarm going off.
No, it's all right. This can relate back to when you were talking about like how you can kind of deal with things like gig wise touring. So it was it was shortly after. So it was actually in July. I played a show at Pacha in Ibiza. It was really, really, really fucking good show. And this was when So Much in Love had started to really connect in the UK, and like obviously if something connects in the UK, it connects in Ibiza as well. The kind of two just go hand in hand. Partly because there's so many punters that come from the UK. I know there was a lot. I had a lot more friends were coming to gigs, and historically that wasn't really the case because I was playing abroad so much. So people my mates wouldn't travel to gigs with me. But I noticed that my mates were coming to more and more gigs, and I noticed that I was just partying a bit too much. Which is fine, but like it was just having a bit of an effect on like my work output. So then I said to Andy, who's my best tour man, my best mate, and my tour manager. I said to him, I was like, look, mate, because we love to have a tequila, but drinking is the catalyst to everything else. If because I was trying to understand like what's the root of the issue here, right? And the issue is that I'd have a few drinks, I'd be like, the gig was fucking sick, like let's go, I'm absolutely buzzing, and then you knock back a few, and then it just leads on to other stuff. Like it just does. That's just what happens. You're in that environment where it's everywhere, and I had to kind of just nip that in the bud. And to do that, you cut out the drinking. So if you cut out the drinking, it doesn't lead on to anything else. I'm not saying that I don't drink at all, because that's not the case. Like I do when I come home after a weekend of gigs, I'll have a drink with my wife. But when I'm at gigs now, the touring's so heavy that I just can't drink anymore. I just can't drink because it would just kill me every weekend. So like it's the stopping the drinking as like every now and again I might have one shot. I'm not saying I'm a saint and I'm like teetotal. I'm not saying that. But it's like stopping it, pretty much stopping it. Before it starts to have like a knock-on effect, and that's the reason why I'm able to tour extensively at the weekend, come back and get straight in the studio on a Monday.
Yeah, so you've got that mental clarity then, haven't you, when you want to get back into the studio then?
Yeah, exactly. And yesterday I played in Inverness, right, on Saturday, and 7 hours it took us to get back yesterday. And so it's not just the getting fucked up that's the issue. It's then it's the traveling as well. The traveling, like from an outsider's point of view, if you're looking in and you're seeing people like DJs touring all over the world, people think it's glamorous, and it's really not. That is not the case, because a lot of the time you're traveling and you're waiting around, and it's pretty much like car or train, airport, hotel, gig. Like you don't get time to do anything. It's not look, it's obviously it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's like it's just not as glamorous as what people think it is. It's very much like it's knackering even without drinking. So if you put those two things on top, and you're drinking loads, and you're partying, and you're not getting the correct amount of sleep. The sleep is so key to sleep, and working out is the two key things to keeping my head in a good spot. And now when we get somewhere, when we get to a location, I'll sleep before the gig. We won't go out and go to a bar and just like go on a little pub crawl. No, like we get there, like we might have a little walk around, but then I want to get my sleep in. And it sounds boring, but I'm just always thinking like, okay, well, if I don't get the sleep in, I'm going to be knackered, and then that's going to have a knock-on effect, and then next week I'm not going to get up for my workout. I've got this to do with the kids, or like I just always I'm always trying to think like steps ahead, basically.
Yeah, I think that's super important for the people to hear, though, because obviously when I was younger, I used to always look at the DJs. I'd be out and I would look at the DJ and I'd just be like, there's no better job in the world than a DJ. And then I'll go, oh, no, wait, there's no better job in the world than a DJ's tour manager, because they get to do everything without having to do the work.
I'm telling that to my tour manager.
But then, like, as I sort of started involving myself with the scene a little bit more and started, like, obviously connecting with a lot of DJs, it's soon become prevalent that, like, oh wait, no, this is hard graft. I mean, like, flying back from Ibiza just last weekend, or this weekend, we had to fly from, there's no direct flight, so it was Ibiza to Barcelona, and then we were in Barcelona for 3 hours to Bristol, and then an hour drive back home to Cardiff.
And I was just thinking, imagine doing this every weekend, let
That's
alone every
normal.
weekend. Imagine doing this. Hey,
That's just normal. That's normal. That's
yeah,
normal
that's it.
touring life. Yeah,
Yeah,
literally is.
and then it's like that's a few times every week, and
Yeah.
then imagine imagine going out and getting blasted before that. Do you know what I mean? And then like having no brain cells, and you're trying to deal with your baggage and like customs, and
Yeah.
like I was really like, it was just eye opening just seeing it and
Yeah.
just be like, no, not for me. But then of course it's your it's your job, so it's a bit more. This is a bit different. Some people go and work in Admiral and on the phone, like on the phones for 8 hours a day. You know, like there is give and take, and I suppose you can appreciate it a little bit more because you're getting to go and sort of connect with your fans. So you
Yeah.
got to take the
The rough with the
God,
smooth, I guess.
yeah,
But
I guess
yeah,
yeah.
look, the thing is, I've seen it from all different sides, and I've done that tour in life where I'm like, just getting wasted all the time. It's just not for me. It makes me not like touring, which is ridiculous. You know, like you work so hard for something, and then I think if I'm completely honest, I went through a stage of drinking quite a lot at gigs. I think because I just wasn't really happy with where I was at in my career. And I think I was kind of like putting a bit of a plaster over it, really. And it's not the right thing to do, because then I think, because I was playing so much out in Asia, I think, oh well, you know, I've got 2 days of traveling to get home, so I can get over the hangover then. And it's like, it's just ridiculous, really. Yeah, like what else can you be doing with that time? You know, you can be making tunes, you can be being productive. Um, but I just wasn't thinking like that. And I think ultimately I was just quite unhappy in my career. But it's kind of like, well, what do you do to sort it out? You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's only you that can sort that out. Like, you're the artist. It's only you that can do that. So
Yeah. Well, you've
yeah, yeah,
identified the root of the problem, and obviously, like I'm super like I'm buzzed for you, man. Like this, it's awesome, and it's good to speak to somebody as well that's actually got their head switched on, that's paying attention to their health, that's concentrating on their sleep, their gym. This is all the stuff that I preach, like getting up and getting a light in your eyes first thing in the morning, especially
yeah.
when you're doing like shift work and stuff. Like, and if only more people in the industry would actually pay a little bit more attention to it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so this is how my kind of normal day goes. So I get up at 5:30 every day. Um, so I've got a gym at the house here, which we built during COVID, um, and I'll either go to the gym here, or I'll go to the gym at the rugby club where they've got an ice bath as well. So 3 times a week I do an ice bath in the morning. Um, and I also run a lot as well. And running, so I only started running back in March, and I absolutely love it. Running has changed quite a lot for me, like mentally. Um, because if I miss one of my runs, I'm like really pissed off with myself. You know, I'm probably a bit harsh on myself, but like running is there's there's nothing else that gives me more satisfaction than when I come back from a run. No, ice baths don't do it. Doing a big workout in the gym doesn't do it. But running, it gives me some kind of satisfaction that I can't explain. Especially because I run before anybody gets up as well, so I'm already back home before anybody's awake. You know, I've done
Yeah,
my workout. I'm done already. You know, I'm set. I'm
yeah,
set
it's
up
that
for the day.
feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's that
exactly.
feeling that you've achieved something before everyone else has even
Yeah,
got up out of bed.
that's
Yeah.
it.
You won the
That's
day.
it. And
I mean, we were
especially,
actually speaking about we
I was
were
going to
speaking
say,
about this the other day. Oh, go on.
especially then going from the run and then jumping into to a 2 degrees ice bath. Ain't nobody else doing that. Well, obviously there is people doing it, but you know, there's not many people doing that. And if you can peel yourself out of bed, go and do a 5K, go and do a 10K, and then go and plunge yourself in an ice bath, believe me, you're gonna have a good day.
Yeah, well, it doesn't get much fucking worse than that, does it?
No, exactly.
It's only
No.
up from here.
Yeah, you're putting yourself in a position that you don't want to be in, and that's
Yeah.
Yes.
mate. Do you know, like, if you're thinking about it, that's like maybe that's the reason why, like, I've never wanted things to kind of fail, because I'm putting myself in a position that I don't like, and then it's like it needs to work. You know, I need to get it. So maybe it's linked somehow. I don't know. Just thinking about it, then it probably is, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. It's just it's that drive, isn't it? I'm the same as you. I love my cold exposure. Like I sort of crave I crave it.
Yeah.
Because like my body does know that it's good for you, and then if you don't get it, you do just feel like shit. It's the same with like fasting as well. Like if I break my fast early, then I just feel like shit all day. Like it just doesn't, like I'm not there like mentally. But like it's all of these things, and just putting yourselves under this like intentional stress. Then when you're faced with something that is actually stressful, it's like it's a walk in the park. Like
Yeah.
it's not a problem. Do you know? Like I woke up and I went in a cold bath. Like
Yeah.
whatever this problem is today, like it's not going to affect me. I'm all right. I think I can
Yeah.
handle
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah. So how long do you, just aside from all that, how long do you fast for? Because I've only just started doing it.
Before I went to Ibiza, I was eating for 3 to 4 hours a day. So my eating window was like 6 or 7 p.m., depending on obviously what I was doing. And then I'd be done by 10 p.m. And then I've got a few hours then to digest my food to get to sleep. And
Yeah.
that's when I felt at my best, because I'm waking up, I'm going getting my shit done, like the gym and everything like that, all the non-negotiables, I call them. And then I've just got all day to work until 7 p.m. And there's no distractions. I used to eat when I was training. I used to eat 7 meals a day. So every few hours on the trot, having food, but you don't think about like the time, because you're thinking about I'm gonna shut down this, I'm gonna go and have some food now, and then
Yeah.
you're eating food, and then you're washing your turbo, washing your plate, and then by the time you get back to it, get your head into it, you've lost at least 30 minutes. So then
Yeah.
you times that by 6 meals. I was just wasting away my day eating. So now I just cram it all into a few hours in the evening, and I've got all day, no distractions. Just put my headphones on, plug in, and and yeah, it's unbelievable. But I don't recommend that to most people. It took me a while to get there.
Yeah,
I would,
I've only just started doing so, because we've got kids. Like we tend to eat a little bit earlier, so we'll have our tea at like 4:30 p.m. and then we won't eat then till like 8 a.m. the next day. So that's kind of the fasting, that because we used to like snack a little bit in the evening, and then I saw a load of like health benefits, so I was just like, yeah, let's just start fasting. So that's what me and my
yeah.
wife do now.
I swear by it, especially if you're in the studio as well, like just like sort of keeping that mental clarity. I swear
Yeah.
by it, big time. I did when I was out in Ibiza, I did do a 3-day fast.
Well, we both tried to do it.
Yeah,
And it was
we
like,
both signed up for it.
how far did you both get?
I got 2 days in, and I was like, all I could think about was food then.
Pretty
So I just
impressive
I
that
had to
long,
give in.
mate.
It was a struggle. It was a lot harder than I thought it'd be. I thought once you got like after a day, I thought you'd be sort of just settled, and your body would have
Yeah.
settled knowing you're not having food. But it was like different stages of where like intensity, where you're lying in bed at night, like, oh my God, all I can think of is food right now. But yeah, it was totally different for Josh, because he felt better and better, and
Right.
I felt worse and worse. So I guess it's different people as well.
I'm
Yeah,
used to it.
that'll be something to do with like your like chemical makeup, I guess. Like your body will be more reliant on something. Do you know what I mean? Like yeah, because I get super fucking hungry, like really hungry. Like I have, and it's like really, and do you know what? Sometimes I just can't control it either. Even if I'll be like in a studio session, and like I can just feel it. Like it's really sudden. It's like it literally feels like a switch like that.
Yeah.
And it can all just be avoided just by eating food.
Do you know, I'm genuinely the same. I used to really, really, really suffer with it. People didn't want to be around me if I was hungry, but
Mm.
the fasting fixed it. So it was to do with like
Right.
the
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I was
Yeah. That's what I've read.
yeah, because I was eating so often, my blood sugars were like spike, spike, spike. So then if I missed one of those meals, like the baseline was way lower. So then that's when I was getting grouchy.
Right.
But because I just don't eat, then I'm just stable all day. I get a spike then for when I've eaten my food and I come down, then it's just stable again. So it was actually the
Interesting.
fasting that fixed it for me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Speak
But
to me
I
next
but I've
time. I don't want to fucking eating for a week.
yeah. Yeah. To be fair, like the 3 day fast, once again, like it's not really fair. Like I was used to fasting a lot more, so like, but it's something I'm going to do every month for sure.
Yeah.
It's just I think I would rather do like an extended fast because like the health benefits just get more and more and more and more and more every single hour. So I was just like
Mm.
when I got to the end of the 3 days, I was like, oh, I'm actually just going to leave it half a day, and I just go to sleep for that half a day, just so I'm getting more benefits anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm just gonna. I think I'll probably just stick to just doing like an extended period for once a month, and then just have like an 8 hour eating window then most days.
Yeah. 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 How old are you guys?
So I'm 28, and
29.
Right. Okay. See, if you're into this kind of stuff now at that age, then it's pretty good going. Like I was still heavily into partying when I was your age, so um,
Yeah.
so yeah. If you're doing that kind of stuff now, it's yeah, it's good. Good. Keep it up.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was saying like it's really good to see that obviously you've switched onto it and it's good to also see how it is helping you and benefiting you because realistically at the end of the day, and it might sound selfish from me, but now I get wicked tunes because you're going to be dialed
Yeah,
in more
that's it.
often.
Works both ways. Now, I feel very happy and content with where I'm at right now, and a lot of it is because of my amazing wife Lauren, who lifts the load of making sure that the kids are looked after, like during the day, so that I can just focus on my work because I have to strike while the iron's hot, and the iron's hot right now, um, and I'm doing everything I can possibly do to provide my family with the best life they can possibly have, and I feel really really like my wife always tells me that I'm wrong for this, but I feel really lucky, like um, that I'm in this position. But she always just says it's just the graft that's kind of got me. She's been with me before anything happened, anything in my career happened. But I feel really, really lucky that I'm even in this position, of being a touring artist and just putting out this music that's really connecting with people. If I'm honest, I can't quite get over it. Like there's certain moments in my career, right, and I'll be. It's like playing at Warehouse Project, right, in September. Was closing out my set, Warehouse Project main room, and 10,000 people in front of me, playing So Much in Love, and literally pulled down the fader, and the whole place sang my song back, and I was just like, I literally cut, like, there's a video of me online about it on my Instagram. I could not believe what I was witnessing. I was like, that was a moment where I really thought like you've cracked it. You finally cracked it. Like after all of these years of hard graft, it kind of all came to that one moment right there, and I was just like, I just could not believe it. So yeah, I'm just very. I feel very very fortunate right now, the position that I'm in, and I think even that feeling alone, and having a really I've got a really good team of people around me, and I've got a really good set of friends around me as well, and that's also really important. and you should never be afraid to let people go as well. That's a really important thing that I want to stress on, because there'll be a lot of times in your life where you have to let people go because they just don't fit into your life anymore, and that's fine. That's just life, and that is fine. And they might not like it, right? But if it's not right for you, it's your life, and if it's not right for you, sometimes you just got to let go, people. And I found that quite a few times, in my life. And you don't rustle any feathers. You just kind of just like, people just go their separate ways, and that's fine. Because ultimately, you want to get to where you want to get to, and sometimes, it just means
Right, you've set your priorities, which is obviously building this life, as you said, for your family, and then if people don't align with that, unfortunately, that's the way it is. In business, they say hire fast and fire faster, because you've got to hire as many people as possible as quick as you can, but you've got to get rid of the wrong ones as soon as you can, because they're going to detriment you. But then that plays tribute in everything, in your social life. If you've got friends, you want to find friends, a good core group of friends. If the people aren't serving you, you need to get rid of them. If you've got a building the team for your music, and you've got a manager or something that just isn't aligned with you, it's not serving both of you to keep them around. So I think that's a really big important life lesson there.
Yeah, definitely. And it may have taken a long time for me to find the right team for me, but I feel really lucky that I've got the people around me that I do, and that are so experienced and so well respected in the industry, because it makes me always feel like everything's under control. And ultimately, as an artist, you want to feel like stuff's under control, because when they're not, historically that's when I've always felt stress kicking in, when I've not felt like things are under control. And stress is it can be avoided. It can be avoided by people taking the load off you. And I understand when you're first starting out, you've got nobody there to protect you. That's what management do. Management protect you from getting any further stresses. They're trying to make your life as easy as possible, and trying to further your career for you. And I feel lucky that I've got everybody around me, including my wife, Lauren, and my booking agent as well. Everybody's really putting the work in, and I'm very thankful for it.
So do you reckon that's why now you've got sort of more of a consistency when it comes to producing songs that do hit as you want them to hit now? Is that you've got that foundation there, solid team behind you?
I think so, yeah, because my team really know how to work records globally. They know this is what they do, So shout out Loving Alliance. That's the management team. But yeah, I mean they've got a lot of history of success with artists globally, and it all kind of just happened by chance, really, as well. But yeah, that's sometimes how the best things happen. But yeah, feeling very content at the minute, and that only makes my music better. And it's such a weird cycle to have gone through, because almost making music sometimes out of desperation, because you think shit, I need to do something to make things to take another leg up, when really it's kind of you got to make what you want to make. Because when you start making music to please other people, it never works. And I've had a lot of cases where I've done that in the past, historically, where I've been making music to think oh well, I'm in with this team, and they're gonna this person's gonna enjoy that, and I want to please this person, and it just never works out. Or if you think I'm gonna make this tune for this person because I want this person to play it, Like, no, make the music which you're happy about. And if you're happy enough to release that track, that is enough. That should be enough. Because you're a tastemaker, right? You're making you might have something on you might have finished something that is a global hit and you just don't know it yet. Could be sat you might have literally just made a tune yesterday, because this is certainly how it went for me, right? I'd made this tune, didn't think anything of it when I made Still Sleepless, and the same with So Much in Love as well. Didn't think anything of it, and then these tracks just take on a life of their own, and it's a mad feeling. It's one of the craziest feelings. Like, I make these tunes right here, sat in this chair right here, making the tunes in the basement of my house, and then they go on to become these like insane machines of their own, really. And it's very, very satisfying. But that's because I'm just making music that I want to make, and luckily that's been working out recently. So it's kind of it's giving me more confidence in my music that I'm making the correct decisions.
Yeah, for sure. And it's showing huge. So what does the future look like for you then? Are you working on anything big? Is it just getting in that studio, laying down as many tracks you possibly can, or are we trying to build something a little bit bigger? Or like, what does the future look like to you? Like, what's your game plan for 2, 5, 10 years?
So there's a thing in music where when you're making your tracks, you're building your catalog of records. So it's the Dan O'Donnell catalog, really, not just DOD, which is what DOD stands for, by the way, if you didn't know. And yeah, building catalog, and I've actually started making music for a lot of other people now, and I really enjoy doing it. And it wasn't really anything that was on my radar. I was always just very much, it's DOD, just making music for me. But it becomes a point where you're making so much music that a lot of it will just never see the light of day, because you can only release a certain amount of music yourself. So now I started making music for other people, pop artists. More you'll hear more about it kind of as the tracks come out, but I released one recently that went straight into the top 40, Jazzy's track Feel It. So yeah, I did that, and just working on a bunch of other stuff as well. So very much still focused on the DOD project, but dipping my toe in and out of toes in and out of producing for other people, and I'm really enjoying doing it because it's pushing me outside of my comfort zone a little bit, and making me produce other genres of music and thinking differently about records. But yeah, loving doing it, to be honest. And I think for the DOD stuff, it's kind of like just trying to push things forward. Because there actually came a time after Still Sleepless where I went down this like route of just making piano house tracks, because I thought like maybe this is like my thing. I'd make piano house vocal records, and just like it was stagnant. Things weren't moving. I wasn't getting any more success with it, and that's when I was like, right, okay. Again, it's these constant moments in my life where I'm just like, right, okay, it's not working. You've got to go. You got to try some other shit out. Always got to be trying different stuff out. If you just keep on with the same stuff, it's just not going to happen. So then I started, doing a lot of like pushing myself and trying to make more and more original music, and now I've just kept that up really. So. Because that's what I've realized as well, is that if you have a record that's really, really, really original and it's a hit, it gives it even more of a chance, because it doesn't sound like anything else. If you make a record and you try and I get so many records that come through as like a potential collab or like a demo or promo, and they sound like Still Sleepless, or They Sound Like So Much in Love, and like, yeah, it's great that people are doing that, you know, because obviously it's like what I'm doing is kind of moving the needle a little bit, but at the same time, it's kind of been done already. So if you're trying to recreate something that's already been done, it's like, you know, but it's not really going to get you anywhere. Well, it might do, but certainly won't get you as far as if you make something really original that pops off. So that's, I've always got that in the back of my mind, that like my music has to be as original as possible. And maybe again, I put a bit too much pressure on myself, and I'm a bit too maybe a bit too picky with the final selection. Like I make music really quickly, but a bit picky with the final selection, because it needs to tick all the boxes. But who knows what the boxes are anymore, because the rule book is completely changed. The way that records are being digested now, and the way that hits are made, nobody really knows anymore. Like it's complete luck of the draw at the minute.
Yeah, that's right. So you just touched on obviously how records are being played, or like sort of the distribution is changing drastically. Do you consider that when you're making tracks, or you're just laying your stuff down and then seeing what hits, or is it affecting how you're like sort of producing your tracks at all?
Ultimately, I need to be able to play the track in my DJ sets. That's a big thing, because I went through a period where I was making music because I wanted more radio success, where that wasn't the correct way of thinking. For me, that wasn't the correct way of thinking. I just need to be making music that was like, that I loved and like was good enough to be able to play in the clubs, because ultimately that's what's been working for me. So I just make the music based on like, can I play it? Does it give you a certain feeling? But I will try not to think about it too much, as I mentioned before. I'll just make a record, and if I think it's good enough to play out, I'll make a quick extended version of it, and I'll play it in the DJ sets. That's what I love about playing DJing so much now, and having the opportunity to be able to DJ so much, is that I can try these records out. And sometimes I was making records and I wasn't getting the opportunity to be able to even play these records out. So you're kind of guessing. It's just guesswork, really. Like what you think people are gonna like, and that's what happened with Still Sleepless. It was COVID. There was no clubs open. You know, there was no one was working behind the scenes, really. So that was just complete guesswork. But yeah, it's a matter of taste.
Always subjective, eh?
Mm.
We have a segment where, you might have seen, we ask the Instagram followers if they have any questions for you. So we're just going to pull out his phone and have a little flick through, see what the audience want to know.
Yeah, we got a couple here, a couple of good ones, I think, actually. This is from Taylor DJ. If you could back to back with one DJ on any stage, who and where would it be?
Fatboy Slim. On back to back with Fatboy Slim at Glastonbury. I think that would be pretty sick.
Oh, nice.
Like it like the Glade stage or something like. Yeah, I think it's that. Yeah, I think that would be.
Yeah, that would be next level.
That'd be pretty sick. Yeah, big fan of Fatboy Slim.
Aren't we all, eh?
Yeah. If you're watching, mate, let's do a collab.
Yeah, see what we can do. Shout out.
Another one here is from Bradley Ball 24. Says, what other music producers / artists inspired your type of music originally?
Originally, like right from the start, you mean?
Yeah.
I've always been a huge fan of Chemical Brothers, Simeon Mobile Disco, Aral Alkan back in the day as well. Like I went through the stage of like really liking like the electro rock kind of stuff as well. Like been kind of gone through the years. Yeah, but more so like Fatboy Slim obviously as well, but more so like Chemical Brothers have been the ones that they've always constantly evolved and just done what they wanted to do, and I feel like you can really hear that in the music. Like they don't care. And you can hear that in the music. They don't care.
Yeah, so,
You know, and they've had global, so they've had multiple global hits, and like you listen to some of the records and you wouldn't think that these kind of records would connect that the way they do. Like Hey Boy Hey Girl, you know, it's a techno record, one of the biggest tracks, dance tracks of all time. You know, it's a techno record, but it's got the hook. You know, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's one more here, which I think is a pretty good one as well, from Redscope Music. They said, "How is the best way to get tracks to you? Which is the best way?"
Just email me. So my email address is my promo demo email address is music.dod@hotmail.com.
Okay,
and that comes straight to my phone. So,
we'll drop that down below for anybody that's looking.
Yeah.
So now you've answered their questions. Do you have a question for the audience?
Question for the audience. Yeah, question for the audience. Like, where do you see clubbing in 5 years' time? Because I've seen such a change in the landscape of clubbing, more so in the UK. Like, you know, you get your decent clubs like in the major cities. I feel like the smaller towns historically and now probably struggle a little bit with being able to like book the bigger acts. So I feel like people a lot of time will just go to the big parties. Is it going to continue that way? Are the parties going to get bigger and bigger and the lineups just get bigger and better, or is it going to go back to grassroots a little bit? What do you think? What would the viewers prefer as clubbers? Because when I first started going clubbing, the scene was like the gritty clubs. Like that's where it was at, and like these big warehouse things had just kind of started, but it wasn't like the thing that was driving the scene in the UK.
No, well, it was underground music, wasn't it? It's funny, like when you look at some of the biggest brands in Ibiza right now. So you got like Solid Grooves or Circo Loco, who like identify themselves as underground music labels. They're the biggest parties in Europe.
Yeah.
It's bonkers, isn't it? So yeah, there's been like a huge evolution. Yeah, but yeah, that's actually a really good question. So as we come to the end, just want to roll out the red carpet for you, and obviously just tell and give the audience a bit of insight into like what they can expect coming up over the next year and where we can find you and obviously where to contact you.
So yeah, next year I'm very much just focusing on releasing lots of music. The first track coming out is called Dominoes, and it's been a big ID in my sets, big vocal record. So hopefully, the fan base and new fans beyond will be into it. And I've got a lot of my records ready to go well into next year. Be releasing a lot of remixes as well. But I'll be touring a lot next year. Really focusing on festivals. I love playing festivals. Festivals for me, like, what I love about festivals, right? Everyone's always in a good mood. Always in a good mood at festivals. Daytime sets, so you can either be back home in your own bed same night, or you go and play the after party. You know, like, because sometimes they do after parties like in the clubs like close by. But I just always love playing because there's no real rules with festivals as well. You can kind of just rock up, play exactly what you want to play without thinking, oh well, I've got this big headliner on after me. So it's like there's not really any rules with festivals. You know, just go on if you want to bang it out, just bang it out. So yeah, lots and lots of festivals. I'll also be doing another club tour towards the end of next year, a UK and Ireland club tour. And lots of dates in Ibiza as well. So
let's go.
Hopefully we'll get to chill.
Yeah, for sure. That'll be good. Yeah,
100%. That's definitely happening.
I think we'll wrap that up there. I can't thank you enough for jumping in and obviously giving us this time. I hope you've had fun, and I know for a fact the audience are going to find a lot of value in this, and they're probably going to be hitting you up for more of these. So just make sure you expect
Good.
that. I'm going to be catching you in Cardiff at New Year
Oh yeah,
anyway,
for sure.
and we'll recircle back out in Ibiza next year. How about that?
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're a man.
It's been a blast.
That's the pod. Eden Opening is fast approaching. For your chance to win a VIP table with €1,200 spend.
1,200 euros.
€1,200 spend on your very own table for the Eden Opening. Head over to YouTube, click on this video, comment your best Ibiza story, and hit that subscribe button. For more information, check out the description down below. Peace.